I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, everybody.
All right. Motion to approve the county board minutes.
So moved, Mr.
I
Chair.
have a motion. I need a second. I got a motion, a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Tabitha, any additions or deletions?
Not at this time.
I asked for a motion. I got a motion from Mike, and I need a second.
Second.
I got a second from Mike. Any more discussion?
Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike. Any more
Thank you.
discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Foster care proclamation. Whichever way you want to go. You want to come up to the podium or over to the, there we go.
Podium wins.
Podium wins. And please state your name. And again, if you haven't signed in, we appreciate if you sign in too.
So I'm Sarah Pratt. I'm a supervisor at Social Services, and I supervise adult foster care.
Melanie Erickson, Morrison County Social Services. I supervise child foster care.
Whereas the family serving as the primary source of love, identity, self-esteem, and support is the very foundation of our communities, our state, and our country. And whereas in 2019, Morrison County Social Services currently has 52 licensed foster families or relative foster families who have opened their homes and hearts to children whose families are in crisis, play a vital role helping children and families heal, reconnect, and launch children into successful adult. And whereas Morrison County Social Services currently has 41 licensed foster care providers who have opened their homes to provide a family environment to individuals with developmental disabilities, mental illness, who are elderly, and whereas there are numerous individuals, public and private organizations who work to increase public awareness of the needs of children and adults in foster care, as well as the enduring and valuable contribution of foster care providers. Now, therefore, we, the Morrison County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May as Foster Care Month in Morrison County and urge all citizens to volunteer their talents and energies on behalf of children, adults in foster care, foster parents, and the professional staff working with them during this month and throughout the year.
Then I need a motion and a second.
Make a motion, Mr.
I
Chair.
have a motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I have just a little bit. I want to ask a
Commissioner
question. 41 private homes
It could be family or corporate.
or corporate?
Yeah.
Blows my mind that I understand corporations, I understand big buildings that house individuals, but to have private homes in Morrison County or anywhere else that are opening the doors to become foster parents or bring in foster children, it just knocks my socks off. Huge thank you to everyone.
Anyone else?
I just have a question, too. Are you having difficulty finding foster care in our community?
For adult, it gets a little bit more difficult, which we will be doing a board report, and I can go into more detail. But no, I think, there's a lot of people interested. The state does a moratorium, but we do okay.
Thank you for everything.
Yeah, for children, foster care, yes, we always need homes. We have a lot of kids in foster care now, as you know from other reports that I've given here at the board. We do license relatives. We need assistance with support and recruiting relatives as they make some of the best foster homes. And then we do need our traditional foster homes, and we need foster homes probably at a greater level that are more trained and available and willing to deal with kids with a severe mental illness. Whether that be for foster care placement or respite. That's probably one of our larger need areas.
Thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen?
I'd just like to say thank you, too. It's awful important to have a place for kids to go when they're having problems, and it's not the kids' fault. And so thank you very much for all the work you do.
Thank you.
And to follow up on the commissioner's questions, these foster homes, are they licensed for maybe one, depending on the disability, or they get up to 5, 10? Do you have any idea?
For adults, you can be up to 4
Okay.
beds in each home. Sometimes you can get an exception for 5. And then for kids,
Children, it's different. It depends on the home. So it can be licensed for 1 or 2 or all the way up to sometimes as many as 8.
Oh, wow. Thank you. again, I appreciate it. Again, this is something that I bring up. We were a foster family here back in the 80s, so dates myself. But yeah, it's amazing what you can help out these kids. So again, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Gentlemen, I have a motion and a second. If there's no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a picture with the girls after the next proclamation?
It's up to you. What do you think?
Why don't, can you hang on for just a little bit after the
Got a few
next
more minutes for photo op?
proclamation? Oh, well, why don't you stick around?
Emergency Medical Service Week proclamation.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Emily Loomis. I'm with Morrison County Public Health. I conduct our EMS audits, and I'm part of the public safety group.
Good morning. Pat Boone. I chair the Morrison County Emergency Response Organization and the fire chief at Camp Ripley.
I'm John Ulrich, and I'm representing MLMB down in the southeastern corner of Morrison County.
Good morning. I'm Scott Sayre. I'm representing Sourcewell. We support our emergency services in Region 5, along with I am a firefighter in the Pierce Fire Department and a responder in Pierce First Response.
Excellent.
A proclamation by the Morrison County Public Safety Group to designate the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2019 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service and the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and access to quality medical emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, dispatchers, firefighters, law enforcement officers, public health emergency preparedness coordinators, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other medical care providers, and the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills, and it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Board of Morrison County Commissioners of the great state of Minnesota, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2019, Emergency Medical Services Week in Morrison County. And we call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens and encourage the community to show appreciation.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved, Mr.
I have
Chair.
a motion, I need a
Second.
second. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say thank you to all the people that are involved, first responders, and, it's amazing how something can happen and there's somebody there in a matter of minutes throughout the whole county, and it's just a fantastic program. Thank you.
Anything else?
Just want to say thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Zelinski.
this year's theme for EMS Week is Beyond the Call. For each and every one of you, for each and every one of those out there in the field, our EMS teams, whomever they might be, that go above and beyond every single day, every single moment, every night, every weekend, that's the big thank you to everyone. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you very much. Anything else, gentlemen? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right.
All right, photo op time.
We gotta do what we gotta do. It's all part of the game. Y'all know that.
I would help you out.
We're not going to get made fun of for this, are we?
No.
We weren't gonna wait for you.
That's kind of funny. Do you want me to send it to somebody in particular?
No. That's fine, on your own.
We gotta have another row here, don't we?
I think we need to switch. No, I do not.
Come on.
Scott, get over here.
Should be better.
Let's see response.
One more.
Okay,
I just didn't come in to stand up there, and so that's why you're doing
okay, all right. I don't know if I should say anything. Okay, we kind of are late.
We're crooked? Which
I
way do
don't
we
know.
go?
Well, we need, John, can you go to this side and then it'll even us out?
John, come on,
That
get
would be
over
better.
here. There you go. There you go.
There, perfect.
Now we're not so crooked.
My computer is intentionally hiding behind you.
Michael the mayor.
Not a thing. We can't see him at all.
There we go.
Then Randy's like the head in the back. Okay, yes, now we got it. Smiles, everybody, smile. Okay, now my turn.
Beautiful.
Nah, it's going to be 30 seconds.
Just forget it.
Maybe there's an email we can send a picture of it.
I'll give you.
Okay, all right, perfect. We can do that.
And then we have.
And Melanie.
Done? All right, now.
We're done.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done.
All right. You're done. You're out of here.
You're giving the just tap?
No, you're not done.
Oh, I thought we were done.
Here she goes.
Sorry, Sarah, I know you're supposed to.
Yes, this one's supposed to be in another one.
I was confused.
I like going between, right?
Blaine, they want you on the other side.
It just looks kind of.
Yeah.
Where?
Right there.
Here?
Yes.
Perfect. No, yeah, I gotta like step over a little bit. Yeah, why don't we adjust over Sarah's stamp?
The guys look great.
I don't know why it's a struggle, I'm not there.
Yes.
The guys look great. Did you hear that? The guys look great. All right.
No, we
Yeah,
got it.
do that. Shoot me email or text saying, hey, these guys have the
You look good though, I can see everybody.
Actually amazing.
Is that you look good, I can see everybody? Oh, Greg's like,
It's crazy. Get Greg in there.
or is that like, oh no, Mike's like. 1, 2, 3. Oh, your baby's so big. You can see everybody.
Look bad, they're all important because they'll give it to you.
That was the struggle. It's like this.
Be on Twitter, man. No, I'm not. You gotta get on Twitter.
We usually kind of fall in. Okay, that was perfect. Well, what machine there, guys?
We should get the coffee as long as we're on the show.
Okay.
So I can hand them out to my family?
Okay, now we're just down to easy reports.
We're on schedule, kinda.
I'll get it done. Sheriff's report. And you can take either a podium or grab a chair, whatever you desire.
Good morning, guys.
Mr. Chair, members of the
Good
board.
morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I brought our lieutenant, our jail administrator with, because there's a couple things we need to go through before I get into the report, if that's okay. One was, we're going with Stellar Services. That was a planning session we had a while back in our jail for our commissary, and we need to open up a new checking account. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
We have to open up a new checking account for Stellar, and we found out through the auditor that I need board approval to do that. Our current checking account will sit idle for 3 years. We have to leave it sit idle for 3 years after we're done with it. For the checks that are currently out, we have to hold it for 3 years before we can void them checks out, the uncashed checks.
Uncashed.
Uncashed checks. So we'll take the balance down to cover them checks and just leave it sit idle. And then after 3 years, that'll be completely closed out. But I need I need new accounting numbers and routing numbers to get to Stellar so we can get our debit cards and our new checks ordered.
And you need board approval.
Yep.
Board approval for
I'd make a motion to
I have
approve
a
it.
motion, I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion, gentlemen?
I really don't understand that you need board approval for this. Is that part of DOC's?
Auditor, county
Oh,
auditor.
county auditor.
It's
Very
a
good.
statute thing. That's one
Okay.
of those quirky things that happen. And you worked with Chelsea and
Yep.
got that all okayed
Okay.
and figured, okay,
Very
perfect.
good, thank you.
If you want to talk about the second thing, Scott.
The other thing that came in
We're
the
not
mail.
finished.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said.
Oh,
Wait,
sorry.
Are we done with the
That's a
discussion for now? All right, gentlemen, I got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Came in the mail the other day is our state contract for our Sentence to Serve program. It's a 2-year contract, and I need board just signature on it for 20 and 21 for a total amount of $43,137.54. 2020 will get $21,197.81. 2021 will get $21,939.73. We use that money for all our STS equipment, tools, van, etc. So I just need board signature.
So you just need a board signature, you don't need approval on that one?
Just need signature.
You should have approval, though, if you're signing on behalf of the board. So I would take action on it, that you're authorizing the board chair to sign.
I'd move on that, Mr.
All right,
Chair.
got a motion, I need a second. Any more discussion?
Quick
Commissioner
question.
Zelinski.
Quick question is, and I don't know the answer to this, Scott, we actually get money from the state to not to have any
Sentence to serve?
sentence to serve program, but because we have a sentence to serve program, we actually get money from the state?
Correct.
I mean, not like it's going to...
It goes up about 3% a year.
Okay.
You know, we started off, I know when I started off and running the budget, it was about 18,000.
Okay.
So we have a current line item, and that's where we take all our blowers, our tools we need, and then the reserve goes into, what we have left goes into our reserve.
Didn't know that. Thank you. Very good.
All right.
Excellent.
Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And Scott, if you could get that to us, we didn't have it, so we need a copy to be able to put in there. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Scott, if you need, I can sign it right now, and you can take it with you.
Well, except for
all find
we
them?
need to get, make sure you get it to us after the fact.
Okay.
That would be great.
All right.
Perfect, thank you.
So if it's okay, I'll start with the monthly report. Before we go through any of this, I just wanted to let you know we had an incident where we had a missing person. The subject left the main gate bar. This was April 28th. It was a Sunday. We got a call at 0444 hours in the morning. So, I'm sorry, I was using military time. Anyway, long story short, the parents called in and they were pretty concerned because this individual made phone contact and said, hey, there was a bus that left without me. I'm walking now near Camp Ripley. I'm on an ATV trail near a railroad tracks, and they left me and then the phone went dead. So we tried doing a ping on the cell phone, and of course the ping's going to kind of tell you a general area. It's going to give you GPS coordinates, and it'll give us an actual area where we can start our search from. And it was anywhere from, it was north of 183rd Street near Highway 371. So our deputies took all the routes possible to see if we could locate this individual, and we did not locate him. So the parents showed up at the scene. Everyone's pretty distraught. I got a phone call. We decided we would deploy our drone, and lo and behold, we found the individual. So it was north of 183rd Street off Haven Road, and there's the railroad tracks that run north and south. And the subject was actually located on the east side of the railroad tracks near the railroad bed area, so down in the ditch, where it wouldn't have been visible to find the subject without our drone, unless we're on foot or by some other means. But with the FLIR camera and the time of day, they're able to detect the body heat. He was passed out, no shoes on. Basically, it was 28 degrees that day. So he didn't really have feeling in his feet and his fingers when we found him, but lo and behold, we did locate him. So I just wanted to share that success story of the utilization of our drone to the board.
And he's alive. That's kind of a big piece to this puzzle. Very good.
So if there's any questions on that.
Did you find him at was it light out, or was it still dark, and then the drone picked him up because of the heat?
The drone actually picked him up because of the heat.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. But it was, I mean, by the time we located him, I think it was like 6:25 a.m., so it was a little light. Correct.
I'm assuming this person wasn't a minor.
Correct. No. So going through our report fairly quick, you can see the first picture is just a highlight of what we did the month of April. This was a mock car crash at the Upsala School. And obviously the purpose of these mock car crashes is to educate the students on making good decisions when they're behind the wheel of a vehicle. And with a mock car crash, the scenario pretty much starts from beginning to end, starting with a 911 phone call that the students make, indicating that, hey, there's been a bad accident. One of the subjects in the vehicle is trapped, and my friend got, my friend is laying on the ground, and I believe he's dead. So all the students are on bleachers at the softball field in Upslow observing this, and they start and they watch this whole scenario unfold. So, of course, we had emergency response from all EMS to include law enforcement, fire and rescue, air ambulance, and the funeral home showed up to the scene. And then, of course, the kids witnessed the fire department actually extracting the subject out and taking the door off the vehicle. And so it's pretty moving. The students, it has a fairly large impact on the kids. Then they obviously witnessed the driver going through field sobriety tests. The deputy will take them to the side and do field sobriety tests because in this scenario, the driver was drinking and texting on the phone. So afterwards, we go back to the auditorium at the school, and then there's time for question and answer. So it was pretty good. It was, like I said, I think a lot of the students were in tears because when you watch your own classmates, even though it's a mock scenario, it definitely has an impact. The second photo is our ice water rescue suits, and we did this at Piers Fish Lake. And then we're just training. We have an inflatable boat. We trained with that. We trained with ice water rescue, even though there wasn't any ice. It was cold water rescue. I guess we had a victim that was actually out probably 100 yards from the landing where we had to swim out to the victim. The scenario was the victim wasn't able to help themselves, so we actually had to grab the victim and swim back to shore. And then we used our ropes as well, where we had someone tending the ropes on the shoreline and able to pull us back. Yeah. And of course, every deputy now is outfitted with these ice water rescue suits because of the generous donation from the Sineski family and other people that contributed to the Memorial Fund. So,
Mr. Chair, if I could just add, Sean, I stopped out there a couple times. It's close to where I live, and I took some pictures, and I visited with the guys, and of course got, they were willing to toss me in and all that stuff. But anyway, they behaved very well. But it's amazing to see. You can't just put this stuff on it or just expect to know how to use it as soon as you have it. I mean, it's cumbersome. It's a lot to manage and put on and try to figure out how to actually function and be able to help people. So it's amazing. Training is so important. It really helped me remember that you can't expect people to know exactly and to be able to know how to move and how to walk and how to respond quickly in a situation that's high stress without practicing that. And so it's so important. And they did a good job. It was nice to see them out there, and they all worked hard as they were there, really trying to learn and recognizing the importance of it and realizing that they only have moments and they have to respond and they have to keep their cool and they have to communicate with each other and they have to practice all of that in order for it to go well when they need it to go well. So thanks for letting me observe.
And thanks for bringing coffee out to the staff.
Well, that was easy.
Awesome.
Mr. Chair? Commissioner Jinsky, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question. Once you have one of those suits on, they keep you buoyant, right? They keep you floating on top. Well, obviously you're not floating on the bottom, but they keep you afloat, correct?
Absolutely. It's buoyant, so you're going to be on the surface. And part of the training factor is what if you need to stand on your feet when you're in the water?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it sounds simple.
Yeah.
But you have to take the right approach to get on your feet, and it is a training method that we have to go through. So,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Wilson.
are those suits heated at all, or is it just body heat that keeps it warm?
so they're insulated.
Yeah.
So technically, you're not going to feel the cold water. The problem is your face is exposed. But you'll keep your body temperature, and your body heats it up.
And actually, the guys seemed quite warm. I mean, their face and stuff were cold, but they were getting warm because of they were working, and then it was freezing cold water. But the suits really did keep them
The
hot.
training that we did and swimming in them and the victim recovery and everything we did, most everybody was sweating by the time it was done.
So do you bring your command center out there, where do these guys change? I mean, this is the real life scenario.
Yeah.
We're going to meet at a boat landing, wherever we meet, doesn't matter. But you're going to meet somewhere. The guys are going to open up their trunks and take these suits out and put them on. It's 40 below zero, whatever it might be. Is that the scenario?
So actually, this case was just strictly training. What we did was we brought an enclosed trailer out to the scene, which had all our dive equipment, just in case we needed to do a rescue. But yeah, that's where all the changing and stuff took place.
Thank you.
All right. So just to kind of highlight some of the stuff, we had total number of complaints for the month of April was 1,000. Non-criminal complaints was 906. Which is pretty much in line with where we were last year. And then the criminal complaints, 94 was set. We had 94 criminal complaints, and 70 of those were cleared. Moving on to our criminal complaints. If you see the chart, I'll just highlight the biggest category. That was damage to property. We had 12 of those, and that's going to be the 6 o'clock position on that graph in the pink. We had 13 scams or fraud, and then 14 disturbing the peace. So that's really the highlight out of all the single different categories listed below. If you move down to our traffic citations, you'll see we had 246. So I checked last month, we had 203, so that's steadily inclining. Last year at this time, we had 190. So one of the things we're doing is, of course, it's we do annual evaluations, and some of the things we look at is telling deputies to, you might have to step up your game. We want more contacts made. That, and then we have TZD going on, and TZD, with the new law coming in effect on August 1st, with the cell phone use, we've been trying to make contact with drivers and letting them know that, if it's texting and driving, if we make a traffic stop, someone's got their phone up while they're driving. For us, it looks fairly suspicious because it looks like they're on their phone, that they're maybe texting, maybe reading an email, especially if they're driving like this. And a lot of it is, if we can't prove it, then it's going into that verbal warning category. So it's going to make it easy for us come August 1st when someone's holding their phone because they're not supposed to be holding their cell phone. So that's another reason with the TZD going on, the extra enforcement, that our numbers are going up as well.
So if I clarify that phone in August 1st, so if you just have it in your hand, that's grounds for a ticket, correct?
Correct. It's supposed to be, it's a hands-free law, so you're not supposed to have the cell phone in your hand whatsoever.
Are you able to pull over to the side, I'm assuming, the road, and then that's going to be okay,
as
right?
long as you're not in the traffic lane or stopped at a light.
Okay, stopped at a light, too.
You're off to the side of the road on the shoulder road parked, yes, you can be utilizing your cell phone.
Stopped at a light, you see a lot of people, too. They're in a hurry, all of a sudden, so that they can't do either.
Correct. The only exception would be is if you need to make an emergency phone call.
Sure. Sean, what is the... Sorry. Sean, what would be the penalty for a citation if I'm stopped, if I'm found to have been on my phone and given a ticket? What will that cost be to me or to the? Do we know that? Or is this a bill with some teeth in, or a law with some teeth in it?
Sure. So, Commissioner, it is a bill with teeth. I don't know the exact number as far as the fine amount. It's something I could obviously look up, but I know that the fines double, especially if you're caught on a second time doing this. So there is a hefty fine amount. I just don't have the number with me.
Okay.
And to follow up on Commissioner Blaine, is this going to be like a seatbelt ticket? Does it go on your record? Are we going to know that at all? I mean, if you can't answer it, that. So if you got second violation, third, that's going to be obviously somewhere on the
Correct.
On the records.
We'll be able to trace that on your record. Yep.
Unlike a seatbelt violation.
Correct. Our 2-year comparison right across the board, it's pretty much the same. The only thing with our drug investigations, which I'll get into, if we remember, they went to a different records management system. So I'll go through the breakdown of drug investigations after this. And then our total inmates, the count did go down. We've been finding out that it's been low throughout the entire state of Minnesota, the inmate count. So we're still working hard to get these inmates from other counties. Although we do have a little competition now, I can tell you that Mille Lacs County is actually transporting some of the inmates themselves to their facility to try and generate their own revenue. It may be something we have to look into the future for Morrison County if we want to house inmates and bring revenue in, because it's kind of a competitive competition out there. So I know Mille Lacs County is reaching out to Itasca County, and what they do is they'll go out there and pick the inmates up and bring them back to their facility versus Itasca County commuting the inmates to their facility. So it's just something we may need to look at. You know, you're going to have the initial cost up front, which would be us taking a van and with 2 employees driving down to their facility and picking these inmates up and bringing them back.
Mr. Chair, hypothetically, Sheriff, if we were going to do that today, would we have to look at another vehicle? Would we have to look at 2 additional people that are not on staff now?
It's a good question, Commissioner. So, no, what we would do is we actually have a cage that was made specifically for a sentence to serve van. And I think it's either a 16 or 18 passenger.
Yep.
So we'd be covered there. Okay. And then what we would do is probably utilize our jail programmer and our sentence to serve worker, where they could actually go on the clock. They would just have to push their workflow around.
For transportation purposes only. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Sean, you said that that across the state the number of inmates is down. Is this something that is a product of the judicial system, that we're just not sending people to punishment, or is the world cleaning up its act?
Good question, Commissioner. I don't think the world is cleaning up their act just because I see the number of calls that flow through our agency. I will tell you that it seems like more and more inmates either A, aren't sentenced yet, or B, are doing more probation time or in-house arrest versus be in jail. That's kind of what we're seeing now. We've reached out to neighboring counties, and that's kind of the same flow. The numbers have been low. So, yes, we're kind of in the same predicament. I guess I don't know the exact answer as to why we're that low, but I'd like to say hopefully our numbers go up, but then again, that's probably not a good statement either.
I suppose, Mr. Chair, I suppose when they doubled the amount of methamphetamine that you carry to be considered a felony or whatever, that could have some implication on that. That was their goal, to put less people in jail, right?
That definitely has an impact, because now in order to get to that certain sentence, the first degrees especially, we are spending more money and trying to buy more product just to reach that threshold.
More money, more manpower.
Correct.
And Mr. Chair, Sheriff, generally speaking, the inmates that you house for other counties are under sentence or not? Or doesn't it make any difference?
Well, normally they are, some of them haven't been sentenced.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Sheriff.
The question I have, Sheriff, is that when you say competitive, are they also negotiating what they're going to charge to bring them to the jail too? So let's say we charge, I'm just hypothetical, $100 a day. Well, Mille Lacs County says, well, we'll come and get them and for $50 a day. Does that happen, or?
That does happen, Mr. Chair, and what we want to do is we want to be competitive, but yet we don't really want to lower our rate.
Okay.
So if we can throw in a clause where we can say, hey, we'll pick up the inmates and bring them back, kind of something like Mille Lacs is doing, just be competitive without losing money, then that's something we'll look at. But yeah, I mean, if we wanted to in Morrison County, we could say, hey, versus $55 a day per bed, we'll go to $45. But I don't want to do that, and I don't foresee us doing that unless times really get tough where we need to.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wilson.
I'd just like to take this minute to commend the commissioners that went through all the heat they did when they built the jail years ago. There was a lot of controversy and stuff, and a lot of times we wonder the decisions that we make today, how do they affect the future? And I remember a lot of that, but it was one of the first jails that was built back in that time, and we were able to house a lot of prisoners, and I would say that that jail's paid for itself. Seems like the excess money that you have sometimes comes through that program, and that's helped us out a lot. So I'd just like to thank the commissioners and the people that were involved at that time, because those were important decisions. So,
Mr. Chair, I think you're very spot on with that, and the revenue that was generated right at the outset when that building was built, it paid for itself. It was there was a lot of very good lucrative years right away that turned that project around in terms of the cost of it and generated the revenue needed to pay it off. So it was a very good investment. And that whole complex in general, how it's perpetuated out and what we're utilizing now in the space that we needed, it was very thoughtful, and they had a lot of foresight on that. Good point.
No, I agree. We're definitely seeing the benefits because of that pre-planning.
And again, follow up on Commissioner Jelinski about maybe hiring somebody. This is for another conversation. We do have the basement. And again, if we start maybe going to get inmates, that'd be another thing that we could, hey, let's fill her up now if we're going to be hiring somebody else. But that's for another conversation.
And Mr. Chair, definitely we can talk about that. My biggest thing is stability and making sure that the numbers may be that they continue to be the same if we're going to hire additional personnel, which I'm sure we'd all agree on. But in other words, we'd have to add more staff.
Right, correct, yep.
And then if we go down to our total number of inmates, you'll see the average is 36, and we talked about how the average has gone up and down. If you remember, there's been times where I've come in front of the board and we talk about how our average is 46 or 50 or even higher. So it's 36 for the month of April. Itasca, we're still averaging 15. And the only reason I brought that up about Mille Lacs County going and picking up those inmates because as of Monday, our number dipped down to, I believe it was 3 inmates from Itasca County. So you can see that when someone else goes into that pot, our numbers suffer a little bit as well. So. The total number of inmates for April, we averaged 52, and that's with our other counties as well. Moving down to next page, out of county inmates, you'll see we had 28 for the month of April, and our revenue was $26,510. And then I'll just go over a little bit of the drug task force activity. So the month of April, our 2 agents assigned to the Morrison County Sheriff's Office, we arrested 1 suspect on an outstanding felony warrant, recovered drug paraphernalia on the suspect. We assisted Motley Police Department with a warrant arrest. We assisted Hubbard County with interviews of 2 burglary suspects. The burglary occurred in their county, but the suspects were in our county. Both suspects admitted to the burglary and were taken back to Hubbard County. We assisted Todd County with surveillance detail, which covered the Long Prairie and Staples area. We assisted Todd County with a controlled purchase in the city of Staples. Our agents with Morris County assisted the Violent Offender Task Force in the St. Cloud area with a search warrant. Then they conducted an operation in Randall where they made a traffic stop and they got a CI that was not communicating with the agents. In other words, this CI was supposed to be helping out our agents, but the communication wasn't very good, and our guys had grounds to make the traffic stop based on some previous information. And let's just say that the person's back up and running with us again. They also were involved in some training, some warrant execution training. In other words, SWAT team doesn't always get called to these search warrants. So our Violent Offender Task Force agents, to include our own guys, got involved in some training where they basically learn how to tactically go inside a residence and work together, just so everybody's on the same page and everybody knows what they're doing when they go inside these residences for safety and security purposes. And then as of right now, we got multiple cases going on in Morrison County where they're doing surveillance. One in particular in Morrison County that our local agents are spending a lot of time on, which hopefully we'll be able to wrap up and I'll be able to give you more details on. So that's it. Sentence to serve, I'll just highlight a couple things. So they've been working at the Oakland Cemetery, Camp Chaminade. They've been picking up trash on county roads. They've been working on a brush chipping project at the airport. The assisted social services, moving an elderly lady's belongings from one assisted living to another. They've been blowing leaves at Calvary Cemetery, and then they've been assisting with unloading semis at the Morrison County Food Shelf and Ruby's Pantry. So they've been busy too, even though our numbers are kind of down on our SDS. It kind of fluctuates, but in the month of April, we averaged 3 crew members. So if you remember, they got to be sentenced through the court and they have to be nonviolent offenders. So any questions for me on that?
Mr. Chair. Sean, we know that you got a big weekend coming up here, and we'll all keep our fingers crossed that you'll be able to give us a good report here when we get together next. So we'll think about you and your men out there this weekend.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, usually what I'll do is I'll follow up with the board within hopefully the next week and give you all the pros and cons so everyone's updated immediately. And then from there, we'll try and iron out whatever problems we run into.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anything else for him? Sheriff, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along, social services.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Morning, Brad. Morning, ladies, again.
Good morning.
So yes, I did ask these two ladies to hang around and talk a little bit about foster care because it is a critical function to ensure the safety of both adults and kids and the people we serve. So just to share some information, one thing I might comment on before we get started especially is that people really open their hearts and their homes to care for adults and kids. And as I said, it is a critical function in what we do. So I can't remember who's first.
I am. Adult. Alphabetical. So adult foster care comes in basically 2 umbrellas. So there's the family adult foster care homes where the primary license holder owns and lives in that home. And then corporate, there's actually a typo on this section. A primary license holder does not reside in the residence, and the home is operated by a corporation with shift staff delivering services to those clients. So both family and corporate homes can have waivered services, which means that they would need a separate license, a 245D license, to provide waivered services. Most of our family and corporate homes are waivered homes. I would say give or take 3 or 4 in each section. Most often they are waivered homes. In corporate, that means they must be considered a community residential setting, which means that they are providing waivered services to people all on the same type of waiver. So the whole home might be clients with mental illness on the CADI waiver, or the whole home might be a developmental disability home with everybody on the DD waiver. So, and as I mentioned, the homes are 4 beds typically. That's the maximum amount. You can get a 5th bed exception on occasion, but when you open a home, you open for the amount of people you have moving in. So you might only be able to open for 1 person, and then you have to go to the state and ask for permission to open for a 2nd person. So there's a moratorium on adult foster care homes. This graph just breaks down, we have 41 total homes, 25 corporate, and 16 family. And the next slide, and I tried to make everything so colorful for you guys. And the next slide just shows the number of homes as of May of each year, because every May we bring in this proclamation. So we wanted to show where our homes were at in May of each year. So you can see in 2017 we had 34, 2018 33, and then 41 currently.
With regard to child foster care, it's just, I guess, a little bit different focus because kids need parents to help them grow. So you're having that parental figure is a part of our foster care system versus an adult foster care. They're needing support and a family setting, but not the direct parenting that kids need. And so the majority of our homes focus on relative and non-relative foster homes. And then we do have some waiver foster care homes. So let me just talk about that for a second. Our relative foster homes have steadily increased, as we know, and we have done the research on our placement numbers, that the more likely we are to engage relatives and have them provide services for kids, the more likely we will be able to reunify the kids or get to permanency faster because there's a home available, and parents that are struggling, let's say with addiction, will be agreeable to say, let the aunt adopt and have a permanent placement of their child. And so we know that that's important, but also those kids do better. Their trauma and their mental health symptoms are usually, typically less evident when they're with family. So we've done a lot of work recently in the last 3 to 4 years to recruit relatives and provide support to relatives. Relative foster care they come in differently. They come in because we contact them and we reach out to them and engage them, whereas our non-relative foster homes are traditional foster homes that we also very much need. That's folks that when Julia, and right now Krista's coming into this position as well, they advertise for an orientation or we run informational sessions. They'll contact our agency. We'll invite them to an orientation. They'll learn about foster care and learn about some of the things that that the kids coming into their home, if they open up their home, will have with challenges and working with the birth parents and all that information. And so those are very kind people that are just in our community that decide to take on that very difficult task and provide a warm and loving home, but at the same time try to reconnect them with their family. And so the other part that we have seen more of a demand for is, like I had mentioned earlier, the need for servicing kids with a serious mental illness. We really want to be able to have our kids reside in the community and provide the mental health services they need without having to leave and go to like Duluth or Austin, Minnesota and be so far away. And we are having some good success with that. We do need to recruit more providers that are willing to learn and have those support services come into their home. We've been very fortunate that we access the waiver program here in Morrison County for our children that have mental health issues. And so we do partner with our adult foster care, or excuse me, our adult unit in that waiver funding. And we have 3 family homes that have that 245D waiver, and then we have 1 corporate home. And that has just been enormous for our kids that are struggling with mental health. And we've been able to keep those kids in our community. And 2 of the kids that are in the corporate foster home, as a matter of fact, they were able to maintain a very healthy relationship, and we managed to keep those kids from being, I guess, you know, with the grandma taking on 2 grandparents that were raising those 2 kids, we managed to keep that family intact even though they don't live together, if that makes any sense. So that's just been a real asset for kids in our community. The child foster care, our numbers, I just kind of spread it out there of the groups that we talked about. You can see how much, like when we first started recruiting relatives were a lesser number. Now they're a greater number than the non-relative because we're doing so much work in that area. And then the last slide just shows our growth in foster care. And most of our growth is related to those relative homes, that number growing and our recruitment growing of those situations, our increased placements and that type of thing.
Mr. Chairman.
One comment that I might make, if I could, just about the non-relative versus relative homes, and that is, for non-relatives, it's it's a very necessary service, but sometimes they get a little more frustrated because the time between placements. But when we're looking at an emergency placement or an immediate need, those are the ones that we look to. So even though they don't have kids all the time, it's good that we have them and that they're patient and waiting for and being available for our kids.
Yes, and the other critical role they play is sometimes it takes us a while to find a relative that's appropriate. And so the non-relative home may care for the child for, like, say, for example, 6 months, and then be very critical in transferring that child over to a relative foster home and providing the information on the day-to-day care and making that safe and secure transfer.
Commissioner Wilson.
I probably got a question for both of you. Same question, but probably retains a little differently here. The 41 on 2017, the 47 on 2000, are those the same, a lot of the same kids that, and 52 you've got for this year? You know, are some of those in the program, or are those all different?
Those are actual, those aren't kids, those are a number of homes.
Oh, those are the homes?
Yeah,
Okay.
those are just simply the number of homes.
Okay, okay.
So our kids in foster care, I guess I've done other reports on that, and I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what that number is. It's over.
It goes like 160.
Over 100, yeah.
Over the course of the year.
Over the course of the year, yeah.
Anything else, gentlemen? Commissioner Blaine.
I also have two questions here. One for Ms. Sarah. The 41 total adult foster homes, would most of those be located within Little Falls?
No, I guess I'm not sure how many are exactly in Little Falls, but it could be all over Morrison County.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then for Melanie, and I may have asked this question in the past here, but I won't page back here, but of the total number of children placed in foster care, the percentage or the number that would come from out-of-home placements because of chemical issues would be?
Well, a child protection placement right now, and this is going to be a guesstimate.
Okay.
Because I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I would say easily we're at 80% of our child protection placements being related to chemical dependency. I feel pretty confident in that number.
That's big.
With regard to our children that are mentally ill that are placed, and we probably have 10 to 12 kids in placement right now that are mentally ill, and the majority of those kids are in foster care and not in residential treatment. We've had some kids in residential treatment recently, but we've brought them back into the community. We still have a couple state wards that are in residential treatment. They're going to be transitioning out to pre-adoptive families. So, yeah, that's all kind of a moving target. But really the kids with mental health issues, that's not related to chemical dependency. It's those child protection placements.
Okay, very good.
Are probably, about 75-ish number. The greater number of our kids in placement definitely are child protection and related to chemical dependency.
Okay.
Commissioner Zelinski.
Mr. Chair, just have one quick question. I think all my other questions have pretty much been answered on this topic until we move into another word to it, and then I'll have a gazillion more. Simply, how long does orientation take?
Orientation for child foster care takes like an afternoon.
Okay.
But really, that is just the brief overview.
Exactly.
Then the licensor comes to the home. There are really like two elements that you look at. You look at the home environment and the safety of the home, and there might be home modifications needed. But then the greater element really is about all the factors that a family needs to consider about bringing kids into their home. Who else lives in their home? What are the ages of their kids? What issues are they willing to deal with? And that becomes part of the home study process. And that really is a much more in-depth process and time. And that can take at least, 3 to 4 visits of Julia coming out to the home for a good portion of the day. It's a time commitment.
And for adult, it's quite similar. The orientation would be an afternoon or a couple hours, but then the application licensing process is a bit more thorough.
The rest of the story.
Yeah, you have checklists from the state that you have to go through, fire marshal reports, all of those things to make sure everything's up to code and it follows those procedures.
And those who might suggest that I'm a foster parent or not, or there's a business there, if there was a great deal of money in this, 52 is not a big number. I don't think it is anyway. There's a great deal of commitment to being a foster parent. That I think is much more than anything, and it's the want to. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment about with regard to child foster care, that's non-waiver. Really, that is not considered income, and it's considered a reimbursement of expenses. And so they are not, that is not listed as income when they are not a corporate, when they're a family foster care home.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else for social services? If not, how about public health?
Nope, I have one more social service item. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Stay here for that one, or no?
You can if you want to, yes. This is a request to replace a social worker in children's mental health. One is leaving us with regret to help in another situation. She's becoming a licensed child care provider. And so because of the caseload size, and these caseloads are revenue generating, we're requesting to replace this position and then backfill anything that might occur because of this position. So
I'll ask for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion and a second. I need a second.
Second.
I got a second. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I think we've had a great deal of discussion this morning on foster parents, foster care, children. We've added mental health to the conversation. This is a replacement. We're not adding a person, and I certainly would support that.
If I may, you said this person that's leaving is opening up a daycare, correct? So
yes, but not in our county.
That was I was going to go over. You read my mind.
Yeah.
But again, it's nice that because we know that's needed too in the
yes.
area, So, all right, gentlemen, I have a motion and a second. If no more discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
And that is all for social services, and I do have a public health report.
Yep.
I have some new food, beverage, and licensing applications. Papa Murphy's has a new owner, and Ruby's Roadhouse is opening formally. I have to see, it was formerly in Genola, I think.
Which one is that?
Formerly, I can't find the name now. Used to be in Piers, or Genola, but it's reopening now, so.
It's not Grizz, is
Yeah,
it?
Griffiths.
Griffiths. Oh, it's Griffiths. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on this.
All right, I got a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I have this morning.
All right.
Thank you, Brad.
Brad, can I ask a question before you leave? Did we want to talk about a temporary position?
Not yet, no.
Okay, all right.
Not yet. That will come to planning next week.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just didn't want to lose that opportunity, miss it.
And then we'll bring Becky, and then after Becky with an extension, we'll take a 10.
Good morning, Becky.
Good morning.
Morning, Becky.
Nice to come before the board. It's been a little while since I've been here. I just wanted to update you on a few of the 4-H things that have been happening. We just finished up Safety Day Camp. Our evaluations are coming in. A lot of those revolve around wish it could have been a warmer set of days, but I can't control the weather. So other than that, it's looking good. I will have a full report for you as soon as we finish those coming in. County Fair preparations are up and running. We just had a meeting with our food stand managers and took a look at the new food stand updates out at the fairgrounds. That's now an insulated building and has really kind of brightened and cleaned things up. It's all white tin on the inside, and there's just a few more adjustments because of the renovations that we need to make to be operating for the county fair. Also, premium book will be going out shortly, and I'm wrapping up animal ID corrections and things that need to be fixed on that. We have decided to have an auction again in our county. There never was an auction while I've been here for the last 16 years, and so this has been kind of a new endeavor. There's several families that are really excited about it, kind of spearheading a committee, so you can watch for that at the county fair. That'll be Saturday at 4 o'clock. We're also trying a new rate of gain contest for all of our market animals, and I'm excited about that. We just had our first weigh-in, so we kind of got everybody signed up for the project, and as we go along, there'll be one required weigh during the summer on either of 2 dates, or both if families wish. And at that point in time, we'll be looking at, of course, the rate of gain, but the homework that the kids have is to track the feed costs. And so we'll be looking at feed conversion as well, and trying to throw a little education in there at the same time.
I think that's a great program, that rate of gain. Really, it does. It brings the kids more involved in their animals.
Absolutely, and to understand the cost involved in raising those animals. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully that will kind of grow as the years go by. Also just wrapped up Cloverbud Adventures for the year, and our dog training is just beginning for its 2nd year. They have also planned an exhibition during the county fair on Saturday at 2 o'clock to kind of show everybody what's been going on in dog training. And that's kind of all I have, unless you had questions about any of the other educators.
I have a question on this auction. Now, is that so when this is going to be at the fair, I'm assuming, the auction. Yep. So if they get a red ribbon or a blue ribbon, will they be able to attend the auction, or is this going to be the blue ribbon winners, or do you have the...
So kind of to start a little smaller scale, because it's been a while since we did this, it'll be blue ribbon only animals and just market animals for this year. Yep. We're hoping at some point in time in the future it'll open up to all production animals and limiting to 1 animal per child. For this year, we're going to go with market animals, and they will have to receive a blue ribbon. So there's a little bit of planning ahead of time, so we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. But the youth have been asked to identify that they're interested in the auction actually by next week, so we can look at approaching potential auction bidders and kind of getting some advertising in line for them that they're supporting the 4-H program and having things kind of lined up. So hopefully that all falls into place. We're also going to take a tour of Wadena County's auction to kind of see how it works. I've not been involved in one here and only witnessed the Aiken County 4-H auction, which is a capped ribbon-only auction. So we'll check that out in Wadena County too.
Mr. Chair, for those of us that don't know, what are we talking about auctioning off here?
So 4-H has kind of set in place some guiding rules as far as auctions are concerned. So it's not a live animal auction. It's considered a ribbon auction. So the youth will come into the ring with their animal to show people their project and what they've been doing over the course of the last year. But the ribbon will be what's auctioned off. Now, if a buyer chooses, he's looking for a pig for this fall, wants to put it in the freezer, he can make a private, ask to that 4-Her to see if the animal would be available to purchase on the side. A lot of these kids also go to State Fair and Northeast Livestock Show, so they're not ready to part with their animal at the county fair. Some might.
Okay, very good.
Anything else? Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right.
Great day.
All right, gentlemen, let's take 10.
Get her built the other way.
Yeah, well, see, at the state fair,
they auction off actual critters, don't they?
Yeah, so you
got a short morning.
So if you show up at the state fair and you want,
What's Public Works? I didn't see what Public Works is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They can go for big money because and I get that.
They do that. They do.
But whatever.
Companies will do that. Like Cardinal.
I think that's a steal.
Like I had a kid that worked for me. The Hartwick boys worked for me.
Yep.
And then they showed. They bought a couple of steers from me, or bull calves, and then Champion sold their steer. They bought it as a calf. It was like 350 pounds in March. By the time they got to the state fair, the thing was basically finished, weighs 1,500 pounds. And they sold that for like $5,600. You're kidding me? No, and so it's a way where like Cargill, KDM, Land O'Lakes, big companies like that.
Depending on who's playing, I do. This year, I don't know if we're going to sponsor, so we'll get tickets, so I don't think we're going to go. Plus, it's,
state fair and state
if
fair
my nieces don't come down
that
for
gives them a
the
vehicle
weekend,
to do that. And then
we hang out with Andy's sister a lot, and there are babysitters, so it makes it harder for us to do stuff if we don't have babysitters, so. And they're not coming this year, so we do if it works out. Otherwise, we don't go.
You know, all the work that they get us in the carrot.
I think they do. I don't.
Without a doubt.
When is it? Is it in July? They might be already. I think they haven't passed year 7th day.
Very different.
It was the first year I went VIP. The second year I went general admission, and I'd rather go VIP. It's like it's not like I don't know how to describe it. It's not that much more money. I feel like to just do it, just go VIP and just enjoy your evening. It's general admission isn't bad. It's just depends on what you fancy. I want to go VIP.
During these breaks, I can move everybody's mic from there, and that's what I've done now. So if someone's got their mic on and they're talking about things, nobody's going to hear it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Between a room shot, a screen shot there.
Yes, I think. Do you have them graduating? Are they graduating? No, it's not that for you guys, isn't it? I have next year. Is that it then? That's that association meeting. I'm not going to. I have been working on trying to get the compilation of. I have Kolb scheduled next Tuesday. You guys will be getting an email hopefully from today from me with all of the compilation comments in the orders of establishment. Next Tuesday we're going to meet, and he's going to help because I need his help to try to take all of those comments and come up with a final draft to put out. So it's kind of it's all over the board, and it's I don't know what to tell you how you guys want to run that, but we'll figure it out. I know.
So how's the traffic? Where you at?
So I'm about 2 miles from town and I'm behind this Hyundai flipping SUV.
You probably got the plate number and everything.
And I'm like, should I pass you? And it's like,
Exactly. That's what exactly.
The closer to town, into town. Yeah, did not even get into town. It's like we can't even drive 55. We drive 51. Then we get into town, and from basically from West Side Rec to Boys and Girls School, and then it's like 21 miles an hour. And I'm almost passed in the center lane. There's no traffic. And then all of a sudden, we're down to 21 miles an hour, and I swear I see
I've been
gal my age, and all of a sudden at the last, and she's looking around like this. All of a sudden at the last minute decides to turn and check out the boys.
Give me a second here.
I could and I was, but I mean, I was late because I told Jeremy, I says, I don't want you to come and do chores this one. You can craft his pants. I said, half a dozen cows I'm really watching close. A couple of them I treated, and one was got a big boob.
You were talking about that. I was coming through Foley, the same freaking thing. There's a guy in front of me, and I can tell already they have 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
One of them. 20, about 20, maybe 20 in a 30. I went around him, he was rolling down his window, doing this to me. I go, you son of a bitch. I go like this, it's 30.
There's one person watching.
Is it? Oh, look at that. We have a fan.
I knew I'd be cutting it close because I have on my phone, it sends me a message that, got a meeting, and it's like 50, that comes on 15 minutes before the meeting starts. So I know that if that comes on,
and you're still in the barn.
No, if that comes on, and I'm like halfway. Usually it'll come on about halfway between the farm and town. Then I know I'll be here about 6 minutes. This came on right when I'm walking out the door to get in the car.
All right, Chelsea, auditor's report. Let's see, where's the auditor's report?
Good morning.
Good morning, Chelsea.
Good morning, Chelsea.
Okay, first on the auditor's report, I have the 7th Annual Piers Freedom Fest Large Assembly application. I am requesting a motion to approve. They are asking in their written plan a number 15 for a variance for our large assembly ordinance. Our ordinance, section 7, additional conditions of the license, subdivision 1, states that we need to hold a $10,000 bond or cash, and they are looking to present a check in lieu of the bond, so a check out of their business account.
Bless you, bless you. Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
I need a second.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? If not,
Mr. Chair, I think she had a question. Did you not? On number 7? Oh, or no, not number 7.
Number 15?
15?
If we go.
It was kind of a question, was it not? What does the ordinance read?
The ordinance states that a license holder shall obtain a $10,000 bond payable to Morrison County in either cash or an underwritten by a performance surety company licensed to do business in the state of Minnesota. They're writing a business check out of their Piers Freedom Fest account, and if we are looking at doing so, I would ask, do you want the auditor's office to take that check, deposit it, and then reissue it back after the event?
And my question, more so than anything, I'm not against this, please, don't misunderstand me, is that, do we need to review our large assembly ordinance? It seems to me that every time we touch this ordinance, there's something. And I'm not making a gigantic issue out of this. Good grief, I want Piers to be as successful as can be, and all of the organizations. But it seems that every time we have a large assembly ordinance come in front of us, there's something. And I'm just asking the question. I don't know if right now is the proper time to ask that question, but I think that it kind of is, because it piggybacks off of something that in the ordinance specifically it reads what Chelsea just read. It doesn't read private check. And again, please, I'm not against doing what you're suggesting to do, but that's not what the ordinance says.
Mr. Chair, if I could, the ordinance was, I believe, adopted in 2006 or 9, I forget. Certainly, ordinances need to be updated and looked at, and this it could be a time to do that. The challenge with an ordinance like this, though, is you're regulating very differing events, and so it's hard to really kind of capture everything, and you need to allow for the ability to be very flexible because of the fact that they are very differing events that may have unique circumstances that you're trying to kind of make sure we're paying attention to a number of components, but they may not apply exactly to one type of assembly versus another type of assembly, and there could be different components of events that make sense to be regulated a certain way in one event and not in another. So there is always going to be that challenge, but I don't disagree with you in terms of on a regular basis, and regular is up for interpretation, that we should look at ordinances and make sure that they're as current as possible. This particular request is one that I can tell you I believe you've allowed previously. It's a it's an established nonprofit event that's there. I think it's reasonable for you to consider it again as you have in the past, but I don't know if it would be reasonable to consider in a different event because of the circumstances that, you have to look at each event on its own and with its own merits, and that's your job. And one exception doesn't necessarily mean an exception makes sense in a different event. So,
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Wilson.
I think the question is, though, is cash a check? Is that what you're kind of describing here? Is a check the same as cash?
So I spoke with our county attorney for cash. He stated that an official bank check could be considered cash, but a check like this written out of their business account would not be considered cash.
Okay.
So
this would be a variance then.
That's the reason for the variance.
Because I would really have a question if I want cash delivered to the courthouse. You know what I mean? I just don't believe I would want to do that.
And I agree with you.
I believe that if a check is given, I would consider it as cash as long as it cleared the bank. If it didn't clear the bank, then it wasn't cash, which would be determined. But anyway, it's not an issue here, but it's still, that's why we maybe need to look at what wording is on some things.
If I may, Chelsea, line 1, it says maximum number of people, 5,500, but yet the application states 5,000.
I believe that I spoke with the Morrison County Sheriff this morning, and he also spoke with the police chief of Pierce, that they do have an agreement on the security plan, which I think would entail this amount.
But why would they're requesting a maximum number allowed was 5,500, so then why wouldn't the application state 5,500? It states 5,000 on a large assembly. It says maximum number of tickets to be sold 5,000.
Mr. Chair, if I may answer that, I think, is the fact that they've got about 400 workers.
So that would be...
Mr. Chair, I agree with Commissioner Wilson, because I do believe that is the case, is the tickets are sold, but then they also have event workers on site.
Yep.
Makes sense to me. And let's see, I think that was and then the camping. Do they allow they're going to have camping there at the Freedom Fest, or are they going to have it off the site somewhere?
Mr. Chair, they have both. They have camping at the grounds. They've got probably about 10 spots there, 15 spots, and then they have camping up at Pierce Park, where there's a campground. Right. And they have also another part that the park had bought that they've got primitive camping on, that they use that too.
I'm assuming, Commissioner Wilson or Chelsea, that the city limits those camping, that would be the city of Pierce, but this is Genola, or this is outside, which would be in the county. I'm assuming then the sheriff's department would be responsible for the campers. Yes, no?
Is those ballparks in Genola City, or are they in the county?
No, they're in the county, and that's why we're here doing this. But the camp, there are established campsites at the Genola Ballpark, and so that's, I believe, what's being utilized. And if they have additional sites, they're likely working with public health to have those licensed or approved or acknowledged.
The Pierce Park has always had camping, and the other one down by right there in Genola, they've got camping sites and stuff.
Genola,
right, but they have their
camping. County one.
Yeah, the only one that's up there is the ones that have already been a campground established.
That's what I understand.
That I understand.
Yeah.
And again, Commissioner Jelinski, maybe this is something we'll have to address in the future.
I understand. I'm not against it. I'm just asking the question because it's every time. That's the only thing.
Any more discussion? If not, I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, I have an application. I'm looking for an approval for an outdoor fireworks permit for Scandia Valley Summerfest to be held on August 3rd of this year. All requirements have been met.
This is at Camp Ripley, right?
No.
This is Scandia Valley.
Scandia Valley.
I thought I read Camp Ripley somewhere. Okay, but, okay. I
Our
have a
last firework event.
All right, I have a motion, I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? Not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Okay, next we have the grant contract agreement for the Eastern Morrison County Four-Wheeler Club Sioux Line South Recreational Trail Funding. I'm looking for an approval for the grant contract agreement. We did put in place a resolution in September of 2018 to be sponsors.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? This will be a roll call. If there's no more discussion, Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion carried.
All right, next on the agenda, I have an application for repurchase of forfeited properties. So I have 2 tax forfeited lots that a previous owner is looking to come forward to purchase, and they are in the allowed time frame to repurchase.
And you need
So
a-
I would ask for the approval for a repurchase.
All right,
of these.
this is, I need a motion and a second for more discussion.
So moved.
I have a motion, I need a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next, we have a resolution that we are looking for approval today to hold a tax forfeited land sale on June 21st at 10 o'clock in the courthouse.
And I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved.
I have a motion, I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? Where at the courthouse is this going to be held, do we know?
At the
Boardroom.
board.
At the new board meeting room, okay.
Yes.
Meeting room 1.
Meeting room 1 it's called. Perfect.
Perfect.
All
And,
right.
just in addition to this resolution, I just want to highlight, and it is in this resolution as well, that any potential buyers, it's highly recommended for them to research any liens on the property or contact the proper owner or proper township or city clerk for any delinquent and or future special assessments on these properties. So, and that is in the resolution as well.
All right, I have a motion and a discussion, or a motion and a second. If there's no more discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Kelsey, can I ask you a question, though? Could you send just these properties an email? Could you send me an email? Because I've had people ask, the property descriptions and stuff like that.
Yes.
And your office would be the place to send them to, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And again, now for more discussion, we bring, the legal description is going to be in the paper, not the addresses. That's how they do it, correct?
I believe how it's listed here will have parcel numbers, legals.
Right.
Yeah. If there's an address, probably not an address.
All right, thank you.
And a reminder that, the Beacon website is really where you can
Yep.
put in a parcel number and do some research. And then also, as Chelsea stressed, there as is, contact the local jurisdictions when it comes to anything that may be involved with that property. So,
And we're willing to help at the county as well. If people have questions, they can certainly call the auditor's office. We refer them to the recorder's office to look for liens or anything that's recorded against the property, or land services if there's a building and they're questioning how many rooms or what's the structure. They can certainly ask those questions.
Here, if I may, Chelsea, the general public, how would they find out about this land sale? I'm going to assume we'll list this somewhere in the local paper. But outside of that, this could go kind of under the radar as far as the public knowing about this or not.
We will publish it twice. not this coming Sunday, but the first 2 Sundays in June. We can also publish it on social media. We'll have it out on our website as well, to links, and then from there they can go to Beacon and kind of view the properties as well to see it on the map. So we'll do our best in advertising.
Okay, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen? Moving on.
Next, I have the monthly cash report. This by statute, once again, just every month, cash on hand.
Is there anything that jumps out at you, Chelsea, on this today?
No.
Okay.
And once again, I review these numbers monthly to make sure that they are down to the penny.
Okay.
So we are good.
All right, gentlemen,
Thank
this
you
will
for
be a
this.
roll call vote. I need a motion and a second.
For warrants, yes. So
For-
next is warrants.
Yeah, okay, this will be in the warrants too, so. To pay all the bills.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to pay all the bills.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Zelinski.
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it for today.
All right, Chelsea, thank you.
Very
Have a
good.
good day.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
And let's see here. Public Works. Steve.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, Steve.
I have several items for your consideration today. The first is a resolution for the award of contract 289. We are proposing, this is a highway safety improvement project in which we receive federal funds for. We receive 90% of this through federal dollars and 10% through local or county state aid money, depending on which system it's on. What we'll be doing here is we'll be delineating our intersections better by grinding in the stop bars. This is a proven strategy in our county safety plan that gets people to stop at stop signs, reduces stop sign running. And so we want to grind them in, use high visibility tape in that ground in groove so that we don't take it out with the plows and it lasts substantially a lot longer than if we painted them. So our recommendation is that we would award this contract to Groove Tech in the amount of $93,900.
Gentlemen, this is a roll call vote. I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Zelinski.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the next item is related to our airport road extension that we've been working on for a number of years. It was a collaborative agreement and a project with Little Falls Township and the city of Little Falls, in which we made application for local road improvement bonding funds and were successful in the application. We've followed through on everything and have our contractor selected. All of that was put into place, and now the agreement is ready to be adopted. This is a standard agreement with the state of Minnesota so that we can accept the bond funds to pay for the project. Our recommendation is that the board would agree to this agreement and authorize the chairman and the administrator to sign the agreement.
Make the motion, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion. I need a second. This will be a roll call also. Any more discussion? If not, Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Zelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried.
Randy, I'd just like to make it, we don't have discussion on a lot of these because we've had discussion at our planning
point,
session.
Tim.
It kind of sounds like we're not discussing any of this stuff, but we have discussed all this stuff before.
Very good point, Commissioner Wilson.
A lot of discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the next is to straighten out our designations now that we have everything in place. We're going to be extending our County Road 257 to the east to County Road 256, which is the Evergreen Road. I have a map in there. Deb, could you roll that?
Sorry, I was making sure Pete Philippi was going to be here. Sorry.
So currently, the way County Road 257 is designated runs from Trunk Highway 27 along 4th Street over US Highway 10, and then it goes south into the airport. Now that the county system will take that road straight out to County Road 256, we're recommending that the board designate as County Road 257 from State Highway 27 along 4th Street over Highway 10 and then straight to the east to County Road 256. So that resolution that is in your packet does that. And then that small segment that goes into the airport, we are asking that we designate that piece as County Road 287. It gives us a continuity of the system and a good way to show on our maps, and also an easy way for us to sign which roads are which out in the field. So there's two resolutions, two separate RBAs. The first would be to designate County Road 257 the way I've described it.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Steve, if I may, it was brought to my attention on 155th, that's a township road. Will that be closed or dead end, or what is that going to be?
Our memorandum of understanding with the township is that the segment that goes south would be closed at some location along it. Since that agreement went into place, there's been discussion of a different access for that corner property owner. And if that were the case, the way we would close that is we would right up into the right-of-way of our new alignment, we would take that 155th, actually the access off of the county road. And so it'd be closed right at that location. And then off of 256 where you come, I'm forgetting I think it's
160th you're talking?
133rd.
It's 133rd.
Oh, okay.
At 133rd, that would be dead-ended after you get past the last property owner.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I have a motion and a second. If no more discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And we do both resolutions separately? Is that, or do we do it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would.
So for the second resolution, I'll also ask for a motion and a second.
Make motion, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? Not. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. That's all I have.
All right, Steve. Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a good day.
Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Deb, Administrator
All
report.
right. The first action item is relevant to what we talked about last week with the revisions to the compensation and classification plan. We had primarily talked about a number of changes that kind of align the policy with how things are done in terminology that we use now, in terms of it's not a mandatory topic of bargaining, so it's not good practice to identify that a position could be required re-rated during a bargaining session. We identified the fact that we wanted to I provided you a couple of options for that starting salary language if you want to look at it and want to make a change that I think would work into practice now. Based upon the discussion we had last week, I sent you a revision, and it's included here that kind of addresses some of what we talked about. Option one being the fact that department head isn't granted any more independent authority, but it requires that to come through the administrator, and to give you some assurance that checks and balances are in place in terms of the fact that that policy is being adhered to, and the fact that we're looking at factors such as response to a posting, looking at the private market and what's happening when it comes to that. Things I look at are what's happening in our counterparts in terms of their ability to be able to hire. If there's anything going on when it comes to overall salary studies, when we see that. Those are the things that I look at regardless if it comes to the board for approval, or if that would be something that I would authorize. And so I wanted to let you know that that's one option if you don't want to allow for more independent authority to the department head group, which I have the same concern. I think we have a good group now that doesn't exercise poor judgment when it comes to that at all, and has been proven by the track record. But it's nice to be able to have that internal check and balance when it comes to that. Or, as we discussed last week, allowing that hiring rate to go to and through step 7 before coming to the board were 2 options that are there if you're looking to make a change. I think both would be reasonable to consider. Or there's the existing language. And then identifying, again, updated language when it comes to anniversary date and not tenure. Tenure isn't a word that we use in any other policy and how we look to define years of service. And then the other major change came in just making the market analysis that we do, updating the numbers on the comparable counties that we use in terms of current language, and then not defining the positions as those change or morph over the years. And so we take a look at what 20 positions we want to identify after discussion with HR and the department head group.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second for more discussion.
Oops.
No, me. M&M will have it.
All right. You figured out which one they are.
I'll make the motion.
All right, and Mike made this. If I may, gentlemen, I approve pretty much everything in here except for the one about the step and grade. As I thought about it over the week, this is a third option, keeping it the same. And again, it was brought up. Maybe that's micromanaging. I think it's holding people accountable. And also, we had 50 or 60 some hires. We had 3 brought to the board. We had not lost anything, so I just think moving forward, if it isn't broke, why fix it? So I'll be voting to keep it the same on that one. Any more discussion?
I guess, Mr. Chair, what was the motion and the second on? I
Well,
guess we
just
didn't
on
clarify that.
what you're giving us here in front of us right now. That's what my motion, the second was. But again,
But you did
3 options.
Yeah.
Well, you had 2 options. You didn't give us the third.
Yeah, I did.
No,
It's
3.
staying the same.
Oh. Or staying the same. Okay. So, yeah, that would be the motion. So my motion is to leave it the same.
Just a minute, hold it.
But I don't think you
That's
made
not
the
my
motion.
Not my motion, my discussion. So again, we'll have to have another motion if you're not agreed to or
I
amended.
guess my motion probably was to approve what was presented.
With a defined option.
Yeah, we gotta define our option.
Yeah,
Right, we have to do-
exactly.
Right, then that's what I meant. Motion a second, because for
Should we
discussion.
rescind our option, our motions?
I think you need to clarify what it is you want to make a
I'll
motion for.
rescind
That
my
one very
motion.
Okay, so I'll need a motion and a second for what your options are.
Yes, there you go.
Option 1, option 2.
I kind of agree with Randy on option 3. That'd be my motion to approve what's before us with option 3 would be my motion.
All right, we have a motion.
Which is keeping the policy the same in that extent. Yep. Okay, sounds good.
Keep it, and I also need a second on that. I have a finger, but I don't have a second.
I'm trying to form I'm trying to form more than a
But
second.
again, if you second it, doesn't mean you agree, it just means.
I'll
that you-
second it.
All right, so now we need more discussion.
So, Mr. Chair, if I understand this correctly for discussion, what we just did was made a motion to accept all of the changes to include option number 3 under starting salary.
Yes, correct.
That's
my motion.
That's your
Yes.
motion. Okay. So we have any more discussion?
And option number 3 is our current, help me out with the phrasing.
Practice.
Current practice.
Policy.
Policy that we have right now.
And Mr. Chair, if I could clarify, that's to keep if department heads and myself are authorized to hire up to midpoint, and the reason that it was brought to you for an option was for flexibility in hiring, was the change in market, was the departments asked for some ability to be able to be more nimble in the hiring process due to things they've seen. It hasn't been commonly exercised, but at the time when negotiating with a potential new hire, it adds an encumbrance to the practice, which can be difficult. But again, we've certainly navigated through that. As I mentioned last week, our ability to hire and attract new employees is going to continue to become a challenge. So the more nimble and the more responsive we can be is going to be important. Will this deter a hire from happening? I can't say that. I don't think so. But just know that the more flexibility we have, the more ability that we have to respond as a situation arises helps that. And so continued requests will be made if necessary to be able to allow for quicker response, to be able to allow for more flexibility, to be able to allow for innovative response. I think we identified in our strategic planning process that HR practices and the ability to compete for employees is going to be a continued struggle as we move forward. So this is an example. This is a request that was identified based upon feedback I got from the leadership in your organization that says, you know what, flexibility is nice. This isn't going to make or break the ability, but it could be something that we continue to talk about in the future, just so you know.
And if I may, again, we were brought option 1 at the beginning of on last Tuesday. And it seems like there's a confusion. Well, I don't like option 1. Now I'll show you options 2 in writing. And that's why I said it's really, it's not broke, gentlemen. We didn't lose anybody. And again, as far as hiring goes, myself personally, if that person has to come in front of the board, it's like, wow, you really want me here. So again, will it ever deter somebody? We don't know. So gentlemen, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I'd like to just say, I wouldn't have a problem either way. I think in the last few years, this has only happened to us 3 times. Right now, I trust our administration, I trust our office heads, but at some point, we may not know who they are. Right now, we know who our department heads are and stuff. So I have no problem with that. Deb has been real good about coming forth before we hire somebody that, hey, this position looks like we could possibly have to go up and above that. And that discussion, I think, is good. I don't think that's a problem at all. So that's just my point.
All right. Any more discussion, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Blaine.
The reason this was brought to us was to be able to execute in that hiring process in a quick fashion if we had a superior candidate out there that we were really looking to hire, whether it was Public Works or Social Services or wherever. So doing what we're doing or executing with the motion that's on the table right now really doesn't address that. It just says, well, we're going to keep doing what we were doing in the past. Correct?
Correct.
Yes, for that component, based upon starting salary negotiation ability.
So I'll go back to what I said a week ago in the sense that this is there are greater challenges, I think, out there with human resources to find good people, to recognize good people, and to be able to hire good people and keep them. I said a week ago, I'm interested in Morrison County being able to hire the best people and employ the best people that we can find out there. And I don't want to have, things in place that do not allow us to have a competitive advantage or at least a competitive playing field with when we're competing with private industry out there. It's tough. This is a tough scenario when we look at businesses across the region of the state and across the state as a whole, whose greatest limiting factor to expansion of their business is the fact that they can't find quality people to fill positions. So I do probably have questions with the motion the table, but I guess I'll say I'm happy that the administration and department heads are still willing to go forward with this language if it was to pass, that and work along there to try and achieve what we want. We want the best that we can have out there too. So that's my comments, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I got one comment to make on that. I'm hearing this all the time about competing with the private sector, and I hear on the street the private sector saying, well, we have a difficult time competing with the public sector. So I know we say that a lot, competing with the public sector, but I don't think we should say that anymore, because we're not in the business of competing with the public sector. We're here to embrace the public sector and to help them blossom so they can create jobs and pay their taxes. On this note, like Randy said, it's not broke. 3 times in 3 years that we've deployed this, and we got all 3 of them people. So it's not like we lost somebody because of this. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, any more discussion, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Jelinski.
Great discussion. I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify, the reason that 2 options were brought forward, or one that didn't exist last time, was because of your discussion. I think it's my job to respond to what I hear and then offer you some options to consider based upon what I heard. And so that was why that was formulated and why you didn't see it last week, because we hadn't had the conversation yet. And so,
Point well taken.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, if there's no more discussion, with the motion on the table is option 3, keeping it the same. I have a motion and a second. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Perfect.
Option 3.
Thank you. And as I said, you are going to continue to hear of the need to be flexible and hiring being an issue and retaining and attracting employees, and our ability to be able to find them to work in our system will continue to be an issue. So I look forward to those discussions as we navigate that. The next item is Steve has some identified RBAs.
Morning, Steve.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Steve.
Item I have is it's required that we approve when we're spending money out of the budget, out of unassigned fund balance, to the board to approve, and to pay this cash call for South Country, we'll need a motion we're going to take a motion to take half of it out of the general fund, which is $1,045,035, and the other half out of social services fund balance, $1,045,045.
And as a reminder, this is for the South Country
Health
cash call capital contribution. Yeah, that would be good.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just want to make a comment. This is a joint powers agreement that was put into place long ago, and we came to this conclusion over the last few months. The whole organization came to a conclusion with South Country. We had to make a choice. The choice was either to stay in or opt out. And financially, we looked around the room, and the decision was to opt out. And under the joint powers agreement, this is how the game is played, whether I like it or dislike it. And I'm not a fan favorite of saying we're going to dish out $2 million, but that's part of the game. And that's my only comment.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you, Commissioner Blaine.
With great respect to my colleague to my right, I want to clarify the fact that irregardless of the decision of this board and this county to cease our alliance with South Country, has nothing to do with the cash call. We are the cash call, whether we stay in or leave South Country. We have that agreement as part of the membership to South Country, and so I just want to make it clear that whether we like to have the cash call or not. Doesn't, that's a separate issue from our decision on staying or leaving South Country Health Alliance.
Mr. Chair, thank you. To the commissioner to my left put it a little bit more eloquently than I did. Exactly. I totally agree.
Commissioner Wilson.
Well, and then to help me if I don't understand this totally correct, but the cash call was made now, and that's to get the organization at 200% of liability, correct? So this money does not mean we're spending the $2 million. We may be getting some of this money back. Am
Well,
I right or not right? Or?
Kind of, maybe. The regulators of the insurance business require a 200% risk-based capital, kind of a coverage, a reserve,
right,
to be able to cover claims if they come in. And so that's a level of reserves that needs to be maintained and attained, and so they needed this to be able to meet that requirement. Cash ebbs and flows in an organization and an insurance. It ebbs and flows a lot based upon claims and where they're at, and they also have a component that comes into play with when it comes to withholds. With the state, they have continued to advance and deploy a mechanism to keep their cash accounts lush, and so this organization doesn't get as regularly as they'd like the cash payments from the state. And so like this summer, they will go 6 or 8 weeks, Greg, is it?
10 weeks.
10 weeks. This is the longest time period without getting that payment from the state. And so that when you say we're not spending it, that cash will be used to cover the bills and expenses. However, the state will pay, and the idea is that, and the hope is that as much fund balance is retained, and we are sitting as an organization well or good financially and meeting budgets, and then at the end of that year, there's a formula every year that's handed out that says this is your share of this organization's equity. And so we hope to have a share of this organization's equity that can offset the expenses that we have, but we don't know that for sure until business is complete. I don't know if that made sense, but
Commissioner Blaine, or maybe this is for Deb. If, let's say, and again, I hope South Country survives, but let's say they become solvent over the next 2, 3, 4 years, and then all of a sudden they have another cash call. This money that we put in, would be all depleted by then. We would never get any of that back since we opted out, correct?
So if I may, Mr. Chair, and Deb, you can certainly help me here if I misspeak on this, but I look at this $2+ million that we will send them as this will become equity that we have, additional equity that we have in South Country Health Alliance. At the end, because of our decision to leave South Country at the end of this year, when the books are settled and the claims are addressed and the final balance sheet is laid out at that shows the business of 2019, then the level of equity that will be established then that we will then receive or be eligible to receive from South Country going forward. The result or the conduct of business going on with South Country post 2019 does not change that number, and so how that affects us as an organization, and to other counties who are also choosing to leave, if South Country's fiscal position struggles, they may look at exercising the option where they can utilize a 5-year time frame to reimburse our share of equity from the organization if they find themselves in good times and a renewed fiscal position. They may look at doing something in a shorter time frame. The only other thing, the 200 RBC
something that's set by state statute by the legislature, that all organizations who partake in county-based purchasing would have to maintain a 200% RBC. So.
Thank you, Commissioner
Well, just to
Blaine.
give you, I mean, at the end of 19, I just got done with South Country with their financials. 18, excuse me. It was our share, our equity was 1.1 million without
the call,
including this call. That was our equity as far as the financials was 1.1 million. What we get back from that, it's all got to play out. I mean, it could be anywhere from nothing to 2 million. We could get it all back, or the cash call back. It's possible, but you don't know until the claims are all settled. And
Commissioner Blaine?
No, I agree. Mr. Messerschmidt is exactly correct, and that's why oversight of the organization throughout the rest of 2019 is imperative in the sense that we're trying to protect the position of that organization, not only going forward past our membership with that, but certainly throughout this year, because it'll have a direct impact on the amount of equity we are able to retain and receive back going forward.
All right, gentlemen, any more discussion? I have a motion and a second.
Roll call.
This is a roll call vote. Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried.
all right, thank you.
All right. And then
Thank you, Steve.
Steve actually has been working on this, the resolution providing for the issuance and sale of that $3.285 million GEO utility revenue refunding bonds series for the Rich Prairie Sewer and Water. It's a very well-oiled machine up here. The resolution is attached, and that refunding or issue process has taken place over the last number of weeks. Steve's put in a lot of work to make sure that the rating, S&P rating, I think I sent to you some of that information, had all the information that they needed to be able to establish the rating. The AA rating stuck, and that's continued. Based upon our financial position, I think that that process proved that we are fiscally sound, that the policies you put in place help us to ensure that status and continue to ensure that status. The resolution is identified, and I just wanted to point out the, I think I have it elsewhere. The savings, Steve, do you know the number offhand? I got to think
It was
for
like 355,000. I think it was a little bit better than what was anticipated. I think that the original was like 345, and I think it came into like 350 to 355.
I don't have it in this. I have to look.
So the numbers came back better than what was brought to you originally. So there's savings and for this.
Which is always good news.
Yes, yeah.
All right, this will be a roll call vote. Gentlemen, I need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion carried.
Perfect. And I know that we did get a message from Rich Prairie Sewer and Water thanking us for the work put into this, because it certainly is advantageous and it helps that organization and those constituents out. So I appreciate that.
I know we can say this a billion times, but I look to this guy right here, the auditor and the auditor's staff. I'm thrilled that there's people like you. I really am. Thank you. Thank you.
Another thing, in regards to that cash call and this issue, that Standard & Poor's didn't even blink an eye at our financial position when it came. Because I brought this up thinking that this could affect our rating, and I brought it up to them, and they didn't even make mention. That report that was sent to you, they didn't even make mention of it, other than that it was happening. And so, which is good to know that that's the kind of position.
Yeah, thank you for your work.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Anything else, Tim?
Pete.
Well, we know we have Pete here.
Pete, good
I
morning.
have some things at the end that I'll bring up, but I'll let Pete get to it.
Morning, Pete.
Morning, Pete.
Just going to give you more of a quick schedule update. I did not bring a budget update today. Not a whole lot has transpired in the last month, and I'll wait till next month. Brother Mike's out with back surgery right now, so we're doing a little bit of double covering, so I'm a little bit behind on that side of things. So just to let everybody know, furniture install for the basement level started yesterday. Guys made great progress. Working on that bulk of this week and into next. We'll bring Holden back to do a couple things here this week, start wiring these pre-modular furniture components, along with finishing up a little bit electrical we got behind the boardroom desk. Next week, one of Holden's subcontractors, Digital Horizons, will be in to finish the electronics on the board. Deb's got a little bit of schedule training coming up here the second week of June. And with that being said, I think everything's laying itself out the way we need it to for the move to actually start here in a week or so.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, to piggyback on what Pete said, the 11th is a planning session, and I'm hoping that, well, I'm planning that we'll be ready to have the planning session over at the Government Center, and I actually have Chris and friends from Digital Horizon who's doing the technology in the boardroom. They're going to present on that agenda just to talk a little bit about what is equipped in the room, what the intended use is, why we're having it installed, kind of so we can all get the same information as far as what that software is intended to do, what the hardware is intended to do, how to use it. And then following the planning session that day, we're going to meet as staff, and I know Mark, our friend over in the corner, is going to be there to talk a little bit more about the specifics and the behind the scenes equipment and what happens. It's not only us and admin, but also Amy's office, primarily the Board of the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustment, and the ability to utilize the equipment to really help them capture those meetings and record that stuff and be able to have that retained and use the equipment to its full extent and get some good training on it. And then, like I said, they'll have tips and tricks, he said, about microphone use and how it's best, as not only participants in the meeting, but as staff on how to be able to capitalize on the equipment and use it to its fullest potential. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them and getting some training on that, and that way we're all on the same page about what it is we're being equipped with.
Any questions for Pete?
I got a question for Deb.
Yeah.
You said that's going to be at our planning session?
Planning session on June 11th, and we're going to use that date as kind of a dry run for the 18th being the first board meeting that I'm hoping to have there, and I want to touch a little bit on that too. The idea is that we're going to, provided everybody's okay with it, have the first board meeting on June 18th. I'd like to do a little open house. We had talked about that previously, making sure everybody's okay with that. I'd like to start the meeting at 9:30 instead of 9, and we'll do the open house prior to that from 8 to 9:30. Allow staff to come down, see the space, and kind of offer the public. We'll get you some invitations to be able to hand out, offer the public the chance to come and see that new space and how it'll be utilized and kind of what we plan to move forward with that. And then following that meeting, I have a photographer scheduled, so we're going to have to coordinate outfits, which we can do offline. Unless there's objection to that. I mean, this is just me offering a suggestion there.
Job.
Okay, all right.
Pete, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Pete.
And then to give you kind of a little update, the admin will be moving. I got to get my calendar out in front of me now. I'm Mike with what day is Memorial Day here. I'm confused.
I lost the whole week.
Next week, the end of next week is when I think we'll start moving out of the administration space down into the new space. And then getting situated down there where social services front desk will be moving the beginning of the next week, and then different social service work units will be moving throughout the week of the 3rd. Down into the lower level or the basement. Everybody will be moving down there as a reminder, except the front office staff, the receptionist for social services. They'll be located in that current admin space right in the lobby area. And then that arrangement will last for the next 6 to 9 months as we work on the main level and really finishing off that area that will then house public health, veteran service office, and half of social services, and really be that interface now, for joint interface for clients, so they have easy access, all right there, can deal with that wide spectrum of services in one place. So that's all happening in the next couple of weeks. It'll be busy.
Will there be signage or something? When you move downstairs, I'm thinking of people that are walking into the courthouse that normally comes to your office. That'll be social service sitting there now. So there going to be signs or something telling them to come downstairs for that? Or
Well, number one, there'll be somebody sitting at that same space where Tabitha sits now, and so we've actually met with them and we trained them a little
They're
bit on
gonna
some
do
of
it?
the
Okay.
on some of the common questions and where to direct people. We're working on signage. We've met a number of times with Froggy locally. We're doing the signs. It's a big project and a big task when it comes to that. So I don't want to all of a sudden order a bunch of things that don't fall in line with the full organization as we look at that. But we are narrowing that down. We're trying to get a design that looks nice but yet costs effective. We're really getting that narrowed down, and we want to start to hang some of that and deploy some of that. But it's hard in phases because we don't want to get the finalized motor vehicle sign that tells you where motor vehicle is because it's not there yet. So it's that transition is tough. But we're working on it and we're getting it there. After everybody's in their final home. There isn't designed to be somebody in that information booth, so signage is going to be really important, or we're going to have continued discussion about how that looks. It's not my favorite part of this, but it's a byproduct of utilizing space to its fullest potential. It's a product of trying to be efficient with staff, and it's a product of putting resources where you get the most bang for the buck. So we'll continue to have discussions about that. The hope with the design where it's at, we have less back and forth across the organization for similar type services. So once people get used to it, and change is always hard, it's more customer centric, and that's the idea. And so I'm hoping that we can morph into being easier
I
to
suppose my
navigate.
question is social service will be able to answer some of those questions.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. No,
That's enough.
very important concept. Tabitha did a great job of making sure that, okay, I often get this. And we'll have the phones. We'll have access. We're right there. We're not far away. And so they can always call up and say, where does somebody go for this or that? And we're working on it. Yep. Very important to make sure that we concentrate on that. Any other questions on the moving or anything? If you guys want to get into carrying boxes, by all means, you can come on over and next week.
Are you going to have a day of, like, didn't we, that last time when we moved everybody out, you had all employees could not volunteer, but help out?
Yep, on a weekend, and that was setting up that basement temporary space. So this is a little unique in that we're moving out of space that's going to be equipped with some temporary but mostly permanent furniture, and so a little less that we don't have, people have to move their stuff but don't have to move their actual desks as much. Then we will have some time to be able to work on demoing the current social, that main floor area. I don't know that we'll need extra time. We're trying to incorporate that in business hours to avoid the expense of additional hours, but maybe once we get into that demoing. We've been working on trying to auction off and the existing furniture. We've been working with nonprofits to see if there's anybody who can utilize some of the stuff that we're not reusing. All individual offices, as a reminder, are getting existing furniture reutilized and repurposed. But there are a number of desks and pieces of equipment that we're trying to auction off and trying to get rid of. We are meeting, to switch gears, we are meeting with a company that's going to talk a little bit about marketing relating to our website. If you remember our strategic plan, one of the big initiatives involved technology and utilizing technology to their fullest extent. And you as a board identified and talked about our website and recognized the need to make sure that we're utilizing our online presence, or taking full advantage of our online presence. And so one of the eye-openers maybe that we found when we started tackling this when working with IT was the breadth. This is a big task to take your website and actually retool it to be useful instead of just taking what we currently have and putting a new face on it. That's not what you guys said you wanted. That's not what we as an organization want to have. We really want to think through and make it useful, make it utilized, have customers really be the focus and make sure it's intuitive and make sure it's all of that. And so we're talking with folks that maybe can help us with that. And so more to come on that. You'll hear about it, but it's been kind of a lot of discussion between IT, between admin and some of the other areas about how can we make sure we don't put a lot of time and effort and money into something and don't get the product that we want. And so I'm a little worried about that. So we're taking it a little bit slower, stepping back and saying, how can we get some help with this? Because I'm not, we're not a website designing, marketing gurus here. We need to make sure that we're not just, like I said, taking what we have existing and just putting a new picture on it.
Just to go a little further with that, yesterday in particular, I went to the county website looking for motor vehicles phone number. Don't know where it is. I do know administration's phone number was there, which was fine, but in today's technology world, I would think it would be right in front of me. It would be just there's motor vehicle. Click, 632 or whatever. It's not. But that's what we're talking about, to fix that, and it's the world we live in. That's just adapt and overcome.
Yep. So as we've worked to advance that project, we realize I want to make sure we do it right. So we're taking a step back a little bit and trying to find some resources that may help us through that.
You had an example of one that I was really impressed with.
Yep.
And I have to agree with Jeff. I go to these websites and I'm looking for a phone number. It's like I've got to go through things like you would think that phone number would pop up the first thing on the screen. It's like they've got it hidden, and I don't know why that is. It's like I got to work real hard to try to find a phone number to a corporation or something. But
no, I think we all know there's vast improvements that can be made to our website that was developed 15 years ago, and we all know that it's really hard for staff to make the time to make it better and to know what it is we're looking for, and then to navigate through that process. And so, when I've been polling counterparts and I've been looking at other organizations similar to ours that have gone through this, they say it's really, really hard to hit that end goal without someone who knows this business to navigate you through it. And so that's something I've taken seriously, and I want to learn more about what that looks like, and you'll hear more about what that means. I'm hoping it's a reasonable approach in terms of cost or how that looks or the resources put forward, but I'm afraid we won't get a product that we're looking to get, that you've expected us to have, if we don't have some expertise in that field. Does that make sense? But I don't know what that looks like yet, so we're going to learn a little bit more, and we're going to bring it to you at a later date. Road construction continues. I think staff have adapted, trying to find places to park, and they haven't gotten hit by either a gravel truck or somebody else. It continues to be a little bit of a struggle, but I think the city and the MnDOT has responded with different techniques to try to make traffic flow better. So more to come on that. Anything else for me? Is there anything I'm missing?
I have one question, just going back to the web. The website and that, and just to refresh my memory, when we did the budget last fall, did we put forward money on the line item to address costs to do that?
We didn't, outside of the ongoing maintenance that we have for our existing site, which is relatively minimal. Yeah, like less than $2,000 that we pay on a regular basis. It was proposed when we talked last about the option to do a capital fund with like a capital fund payment, because it's not something on an annual basis that we continue to have. And so this is a very good example of an organizational initiative or cost that would come from dollars that we've put aside for that, instead of budgeting on an annual basis for something that is only a expense every now and then. That's been that goal,
and that makes sense. But we've kind of talked in the past about the fact that we're going to have to spend some money to get this thing to where it needs to be.
Yeah, and that's where we're looking at, making sure that we have the right resource or the right help in making sure we get a product that's appropriate in the end.
Spending money wisely.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
And time, because it's a lot. So more to come on that. Schedules, Randy? Maybe.
Are we good?
Yep.
All right. How about we do schedules? Let's start with Commissioner Blaine.
Can we start with a date?
May 26th through June 8th.
26th to the June 8th. Where is time?
So we've got a planning session on May 28th. We got board meeting on June 4th. South Country Health Alliance on June 6th,
9 a.m.
9 a.m. And that one, I may view that IT from beautiful downtown Wadena, possibly. June 7th, TSWAC. And for some reason, I feel like I'm missing either a Board of Adjustments or planning. On the 4th? Okay.
It's Board of Adjustments on the 4th.
Yep, 7 o'clock.
Is there a planning commission on the 28th?
Yep, 7 o'clock.
I missed that one too. On the 28th.
28th, 7 o'clock. Planning Commission.
Okay.
You did TSWAC, right?
Yep, and I did TSWAC. That would be it, Mr. Chair, for me.
Commissioner Wilson, how about you?
Camp Ripley, we just got a letter today at 6 o'clock is the landscape sentinel out there at Camp Ripley. And also there's going to be something, Little Falls School District has got a speaker coming in on Friday the 31st from 8 till 11. It's on learning. And there's going to be a lot of cities and counties invited, school districts from all around the area coming to listen to this speaker. So I don't know if you've got any more information on that or not.
On the 31st?
Yep.
Up in Little Falls School?
Yep.
Superintendent Steve Jones had already sent that out, and I intend to go, and a couple of my HR staff actually are going just to hear what they have to say regarding learning and that new initiative, maybe is right.
So anyway, that said, and we're all invited. He asked me to ask that invitation on. And that covers everything, I think, with what everybody else said.
All right, how about Commissioner Lemire?
HRA on the 28th, HRA at 1:30. Deb, do you have anything down on the 31st for Chaminade? I got Chaminade at 2 o'clock for some reason.
That's that project group that, like, they invited us to have. I mean, I did put it on my calendar, and I'll see if I can make it up there. I didn't go to the last one. I had talked to Cindy and Bob about, Amy's not a resource we're applying and putting towards that, but I would participate as I can. Yep. They haven't identified a date or a place, I should say.
Right. Okay.
It would just be, if it's just Commissioner Lemire if they go, so it's not something that has to be advertised because I don't know the location yet.
And then the 5th, Public Health at 5 o'clock p.m. And they got the rest of them.
All right, Commissioner Zelinski.
On the 31st at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got an EMS Joint Powers Board meeting, and that is at the Stearns County Service Center. On June 1st, and I don't know that I'm going, at 8:30 in the morning, there's a Lake and River Day at the Initiative Foundation, just for everybody's information. On the 3rd at 6:30, there's a Morrison County Public Safety meeting. That's police, fire, EMS, and
Where's that?
I think it's at Public Health. I'm pretty positive. On the 6th of June at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got a State Emergency Communications Board Legislative Committee phone conference. And that, I believe is all for me, Mr. Chair.
On the 28th, do you have anything at 10 a.m.?
28th,
I might be in the calendar wrong.
28th at 10 a.m.
SECB meeting?
SECB on the 28th of May?
I don't think they're normally on Tuesdays, so I don't know if it just got mistaken.
I don't think so. It would be, if it's the 28th, I would, on a Tuesday, I think that's an error.
Okay.
Thank you.
And myself, the only thing is, I'll be meeting with the Bellevue Township at 7 o'clock on the 5th of June with Amy, our Land Services Director, going over the possible new ordinances. So otherwise, that takes care of me. Anything else, gentlemen? Motion to adjourn. Got a motion? I need a second. Any more discussion? Not, those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We're adjourned at, what time is it?
11:19.
11:19.